Song of the Angels, flute orchestra, and as you see up here, 6 kinds of flutes. And when we're fully packed, there are 8 kinds of flutes. What? Well, there are 2 missing in action. An F bass that's 5th lower than these C basses, fits between Bill and the C flutes. C basses. And the other one that's missing fits between Sue and this one. It's a 5th lower than Sue's contra bass flute. So we're a flute orchestra that plays a pitch range of 7 octaves, like a symphony orchestra. But that wasn't always the case. When they invented the modern flute, the flute was a high-pitched instrument. And through the years, flute makers have been adding lower and lower flutes until they've gotten to this one. That's the lowest flute. So in 1865, there was the C flute and the piccolo. And shortly thereafter, they developed an alto flute. Those there, you see straight ones and curved ones. And in about 1900, or shortly thereafter, they created the bass flute. These here. And it wasn't, and then many years went by, you know, there was World War II, a lot of things going on in the world. So flute makers didn't do anything. And they had a hard time working on the bass flute to make it work. So they had cold feet, nobody touched it until about 60, 70 years later, somebody was determined to get a lower flute. And they created those 3 contrabass flutes. About in the mid-80s. And then shortly thereafter, they did this one. And after they did this one, they did the one that fits in between. So we've got a little demonstration to demonstrate how the flute ensemble sounded back in 1865 till now, 4 stages, when they added the altos, basses, and contras. So here we go.
And how many of those are there?
Oh, I forgot to mention Jeff's favorite subject. How much do these days cost? Well, it costs a lot to supply this orchestra. This one costs $50,000, so you guys start playing around with numbers. So we got a lot of money to make these sounds. I don't know how much a note costs when we blow it.
So how many are
there are just 4 of these in the world, probably because they cost so much.
Yes.
And the one that's missing between Sue and this one, there's only one. So we have it. When we need it, when the music requires, we pull it out. Okay, Chuck,
All
give
right,
us
so
our demonstration.
first, the 1865 thing. Here we go. Now the turn of the century thing. 2, 3. back there, so you really hear them well. Most groups don't have access to these really big instruments, so instead they will use like a contrabass clarinet, or a bassoon, or a string bass. But we're fortunate, and I'm a real purist for this group, and so I want all real flutes. So, now the next piece, Carnavales.